Hello everyone, welcome to today's class. Before we get started, let's cover some announcements. Tomorrow or tonight, I'm not sure yet because just need to wrap my head around it a little bit. It's just the sale. If you want Portrait Studio, if you are waiting for Portrait Studio to go on sale, it will go on sale either tonight or tomorrow night. Keep an eye out on the store on my website, it's istebrak.com, on the store tab right here. And if you're interested in supporting on Patreon, if you learned something from my classes over the years, if you want to give back and you're not sure how, if you have the patience to deal with online checkout, that's really all that it takes. You can join as a patron, even as a $1 patron, as a watcher. There's a reason why I call the $1 patron subscriptions watchers, because if everybody joined, it's, you guys are watching over the community. It's not necessary for you to join for the higher tiers, or any tier for that matter, to be a part of the community. The community is free. All this knowledge that I've gained over the years, I give to you for free. I'm not saying that you need to be a patron in order to get anything. You can join. The Reddit is free. You get critiques for free. And the critique hours are uploaded for free of charge on my YouTube. This is just if you want to give back, you want to keep the community stable, independent. Should I ever assign with any marketing or anything like that, they do try to tailor your videos and control your content, which I am 100% against. I don't like anyone telling me to make shorter videos. I don't want anyone telling me what to draw. I don't want anyone telling me more boobs, more color. I don't want anyone telling me more fan art. To those people, I say things I shouldn't say on my videos, and I've just edited it out. So that's why I kind of try to stay independent. I don't really care if I'm not making crazy money off monetization or anything from my videos. But if you want to keep this channel independent and keep it independent as it is, you can join on Patreon and join as a watcher. That's $1 a month, $12 a year. And probably the cheapest amount for the most amount of education, apart from the $0, which it is for free. But if you want to, that window is available for you. So the sale is going to be tomorrow. It'll be 50% off, mostly because I've tried to keep the price low just because I know everyone has financial constraints, but at the same time everyone's home and want to learn art and want to work better. So it feels like I should be raising my prices because everyone's home and I should be capitalizing on that, but absolutely not. I'm not a charlatan. I kept the prices low just because I know everyone's financial situation because of the coronavirus has been challenged, including my own. So I try to keep the prices low across my store, and the price will go even lower for the holidays because I know everyone has New Year's resolutions. So come January, even into January, because that's when really the New Year's resolutions start. December for Christmas gifting, and then this weekend for the Cyber Monday stuff. If that Cyber Monday is next week, or did it just pass? I don't know, but the whole Thanksgiving business, it'll be on sale for 2 weeks to 3 weeks this month, and then next month on the 20th of December the sale will start at up to 55% off for Portrait Studio. And if you don't know what Portrait Studio is, it's all over my channel. You just have to go to my YouTube, and it's available there. But I will try to upload a video promo showing you what it does and what the updates are going to include. If we have footage currently of the updated version, it's not live yet, it's still beta. I will try to put some of that footage in the video, just so that you guys can get an idea of what's coming. If it's not available and Alba doesn't feel comfortable putting it in the video, I won't. But we'll do a quick follow-up video as soon as we have footage of the updated version available. But Alba's been working on it nonstop since the housework has stopped. It's winter now, so we're all stuck indoors. Plus this New York lockdown that's coming up, we're not going to be doing much other than being on our offices and watching Mandalorian. So we probably will get the update out as soon as we can. And any other housework will start in the spring, which gives us quite a bit of time to cover as much mileage as possible. Today, I'm sorry if I sound not as lively as I usually do. I'm just a little bit tired and a little bit sick. But today I wanted to take a look at adding intensity to a portrait, to an environment kind of character scene, not a portrait. As soon as Photoshop decides to get its shit together. Say new dollar for what? Engaging more with the community. Thank you, Grumpy. Thank you for the subscription. Portrait Studio is really well put together. It's worth probably more than the full price. Thank you, Vari. I really, really appreciate it. And for those who are using it, and you are, if you are active on the Reddit, there's a lot of people who ask about it, who ask about how to use it and what the, experience is like owning Portrait Studio. So if you could reply to them as well, that'd be really cool. Don't go out of your way to do it, but if you happen to use it and see someone asking about Portrait Studio, maybe you can give them your input and how you've benefited from it or how you use it yourself personally. All right, so let me just check my sound because I don't wear my headphones. All right. So this piece is a very old piece. I couldn't find anything to look at today that's recent, that isn't a 14-day challenge, which I've done enough of, or an environment, which I feel like I've done a lot of, since, especially because of our environment studies or interior environment studies for the snake challenge. So I just wanted to look at something that is kind of like halfway there, kind of characters and environment combined, but mostly the cinematics of it all. So what I'm adding today, the term for it is just cinematic intensity. Just how to add a lot of kinetic energy to the scene to make it feel a little bit more action-filled, a little bit more lively. And they're just tricks. They're just shot tricks. They're like, it's not magic tricks, but it's the magic of cinema that makes a scene feel like it's active, because it inherits what you would be seeing because if you've noticed in movies, from when movies first happened to now, movies have taken a lot of that first person experience, and they've stayed away from that third person shot. Those long shots where you see characters like in Wes Anderson films or Napoleon Dynamite or Nacho Libre, when you see characters fill up a whole screen, there's the ground and it's a very, very long shot. It's a wide shot of the two characters. There's Nacho, and I think Nacho was on the bicycle and Esqueleto was in the middle, or Esqueleto was in the back, or Esqueleto was holding his shoulder. It's a very silly scene. And then a lot of Wes Anderson films, you see a lot of long shots of characters just standing head to toe in the scene. Makes the scene feel much bigger. He also uses a lot of natural elements in his movies. So you see a lot of wind, a lot of grass, a lot of leaves, a lot of movement of the natural world, which kind of de-emphasizes the comedy of having a character zoomed out that far away from the camera or pushed that far away from the camera. But that's not what I'm talking about. What I'm saying is a lot of the olden methods, which is just have the character in the camera. That's all. Let the audience do the rest. We've moved away from that. And now we've got all these like Dutch angles and explosions and solar flares, lens flares and motion blur and camera blur and stuff to make it feel like you're actually over there in the scene, freaking out, running around, tilting your head, falling down, motion blur from you turning your head side to side, looking at the action happening, focus blur because you're looking at one thing at a time, or everything else is periphery blur. So that's what I'm doing today. I'm going to be looking at that. And we use this everywhere now, in comic books and games and movies, because it is very immersive. It changes storytelling to be not a story that's being told by someone omnipotent, but a memory you personally have. So that's the beauty of cinema, is that it can feel like, if it's well made, it can feel like a memory. And then there's the less action, more psychological. I mean, you kind of have to think about the genre as well. Not everything is a Transformers movie, but most of the time when you're talking about magical elements, you are talking a lot of immersion, because magic itself is difficult for an audience to swallow. So you want to apply as much of the immersion as possible. So Transformers, so difficult a concept to swap. Cars turning into things, a robot, really. But then look at how they executed it. Like, yes, they're real. What the hell? Where's my Transformer? So that's because of the way they executed the movies. Transformer 1, the first one, is wonderful. It's not very well dated in that it's the way they incorporated the teenage struggle. I don't think that ever dates well in movies. But the way they executed all of the characters, the way they pulled off the transformations without having to worry too much about the mechanics, and the obscurity of the realism of the textures, but the obscurity of the concept, how they kept some things and didn't mess with them too much, and it just helps the scene feel real. And then the texture and the sound effects and all of that made it really, really cool. So realism goes a long way, and part of creating that immersive experience in your illustrations is part of it's realism. So how do we add that immersive feeling here? So if you were, I mean, I'm not saying put the camera in front of him, because sometimes we want that hero shot. You know, we want the shot of the hero with their cape billowing in the heat wave, and we don't want everything to be a camera angle. If it was a camera angle, a POV shot, we just see big eyes looking down. But then if we look at if we add a little cliff and we have a little hero and the hero's cape is billowing away, and then we have two eyes looking down, something about that is even more immersive, because it's not a specific POV shot, it's a combination. We get what the character is seeing, and then we get what we, the viewer, are seeing. It's like we get two shots combined into one. And that's why we want to, you know, try this one for the changes for this piece. So those are the changes I'm going to make. All right, so in the film class I took in college, I took a couple. It was all old films. It was nothing. I mean, the most awesome shot we studied was a Kill Bill shot. And even then, that was not so much about cinematic effects and immersiveness. It's just about textures and colors and layout and composition. So I wouldn't say this is stuff I picked up at school, though I picked up a lot about cinema at school. We did shot-by-shot analysis of our favorite movies, like for going on to 15 minutes. You know how many shots are in 15 fucking minutes? Lots, let me tell you. The one I did, I think I did Apocalypto, and I chose an action scene. I think I hit around 300 shots that I had to describe as a, you know, technique within a 15 or 5-minute window, I forget. But this is the kind of stuff you pick up when you watch actively, when you watch movies actively, when you look at these shows, these new shows, old shows, observe, be an active observer. So because I feel like this is such a giant of a character, they should take up more space in the canvas. And you did well, but let's hide some more of them. Okay, forget this little guy. I'll take care of him later. And if I was a giant, like imagine looking at a spider in your room that you're interested in and you want to look at it closely. What do you look like to that spider? You look like you're kneeling down. Your head is beneath your shoulder line, so that really makes it feel like you're crouching, kind of curious. What's this intriguing little thing, and what's it doing here? It's more curious. I mean, he's smiling. Do you think he's threatened by this tiny little thing? You gotta give him credit. You know, why would he be threatened by it? Until later, it proves that he's got the sword of truth or something like that, and then from there, he'll regret his decision not to take the little guy seriously. But until then, he's very curious, and so that's why we're tucking his head beneath, and that'll just make for better character. And that's really not to do with the cinema in any way. It just makes for a better character. And another thing you have here is a 3/4 view, which has suddenly invented a third person involved in this process. So remember that the two eyes that I did, and then the cliff, and then the character. So you giving us a 3/4 view of this guy, and then we're looking this. Suddenly you've invented us. We don't want to be there. We don't want to be present there. We don't want to be too present in this scene. The viewer doesn't want to be pointed at. The viewer doesn't want to notice itself. It's like akin to the, I don't know, the id. It doesn't want to know itself. It just wants to be. So when we're looking at a 3/4 view, we're no longer doing a superimposed two shots on one. One is the view of the character, and one is the view of us acting as the character looking at himself. So we're hidden in that superimposed, that two-piece one with the eyes and the cliff. So I think you should change the angle, because it just looks so I don't know, it's definitely not as immersive. Let's just put it at that. Feels a little bit like a profile shot, or less like a conversation between the two. So I think a less 3/4 view shot makes it seem less like it's over there, and no longer makes it seem like there's an omnipotent viewer telling the story. Kind of feels more like it's a direct conversation between the two, not some people sitting at a table in a diner over there all in 3/4 view or side view. They're directly part of this narrative, and so they'll have direct shots and close-ups. 3/4 views are very impersonal. 3/4 views tend to remove a lot of the, just like even side views actually I think are more intimate. But 3/4 views tend to be a little bit impersonal because they feel like they're turned away from you as the viewer. They're not a part of your conversation. All right, and so to add a little bit of perspective, and that slow kind of head rotating process was really creepy, right? To add a little bit of a perspective, I mean, just animating that is hella cool, right? It's like an animated splash. That's pretty cool. You know, that's just how the conversation went. Just looking at the navigator, and I'm just going to choose a frame in this animation that I feel like is the best. And I feel like he's really crouched down looking at this little guy and just laughing at him. If it was up to me, see, there's always that problem, is that I don't want to invest too much of what I want to do in this scene. If it was my project. If it was my project, I'd have done the two big eyes leaning down on the character. But I'm working with what the student has brought in. All right, so it feels like they've crouched forward, like woof, you know, and they're just coming in to look at the little guy here. So that's added some perspective. So before, what you had was the head was the same distance as the shoulders, and he was kind of off to the side, and it was just like a perfume commercial, you know, the 3/4 view, and he just needed a little perfume bottle right here. That would have been it. Maybe a little big flower there. Right? You see what I'm saying? It just seems like a magazine cover. It seems like it's distant. It's not really something that we're involved in. It's something disconnected, turning away from us, looking away. But here now he feels like he's, like, you know, really, really part of this exchange. And as for the character, I don't like the way you drew him at all. If this is a fight scene, this isn't an introduction scene. This seems like it's an introduction scene. It doesn't, there's no, he seems like he's about to piss him off. Maybe it will become a fight scene in a bit. But he's showing no signs of, you know, throwing an axe in the air or reaching for a sword. It seems like it's a conversation. I could be wrong. Right, and then I'm going to provide that cliff I feel like we should have. And it's just another one of those blurred foreground pieces. And then for the character, I'm going to start with, you know, what I feel like the character's gestural presence is in the piece, which is his cape. And then it must be pretty difficult being inside a volcano, so I'm going to kind of just show that he's crouching. Right. Not a big Jabutis. And then I just want to show what you initially intended with the sword, which is to, so I'm just gonna do a big gesture and then fit that arm in there somewhere. So the shoulder would be in front, and then the gauntlet. And then maybe a shield that he hasn't yet raised. If you want him standing, you can make him stand as well. That kind of looks like he's got a skirt. So let me just move him first and then I'll do the rest. I feel like it would be a lunge of some kind. I just feel like that all that billowing hot air after the monster kneeled in might be a nice tool I can use to keep the scene moving. Okay, and then scale is one big thing that movies use, so that really just makes things happen when it comes to the monster, the fear factor. You guys have seen that popular shot where the character is stuck between the monster's legs as the monster jumps over and the camera pans in this 180-degree motion from left to right, east to west, as the monster's crotch flies above us. So that has a lot to do with developing scale, establishing scale. So I let that guy be a little more visible. So here's some of those tricks. So that's scale. Scale is a great trick. We've grounded him. This is the next trick. But we completely distort this surface. So now if we have two setups now. We have what seems like it's a top-down angle. It feels like he's coming out of the ground, right? There's a cliff, a fissure of lava, and he's emerging from it. Here, he feels like he's descending on the character. So this way, like that, feels like he's coming from above down. So you've got all these tricks at your disposal. I like this one because it really just makes this guy feel so tiny. Whereas the one from before, where he feels like he's climbing up out of the ground, I feel like it's not really the best for, it's good for mid-fight, but I don't think it's the best for initial establishing shot where we want to feel endangered. We want to feel worried about the viewer, about the character. All right, I don't like these little guys because I don't know if these are supposed to be minions or like it looks like shoulders and a head. I don't know if those were your version of a rock. Let me just get rid of them and make them abstraction. Kind of just whatever works from this angle. So, some cinematic shot trick things, like effects, let's say. So we've got motion blur, which I will try to mess with in multiple ways. Motion blur. So we've got intense motion blur because of the heat. So if you've ever seen fire, there's a lot of motion blur with it. And so when we're talking about a monster that's shooting in, we've got motion blur because he's moving, and then just that heat, that miasma that surrounds heat. What's that called? It's like a light distortion thing. I don't know what it's called, but when you're like walking down a street or a sidewalk in the summer and the ground is waving. So that's something that we could use to represent the fact that it's super, super, super hot in this scene. So we've got the before, after, and then I'm gonna delete some of this, and that's really gonna create the feeling that it's a very, very hot environment. And I'm gonna select where these waves are happening by deleting at them sporadically. That's why I didn't really care much for those abstract brushstrokes, because it was all going to get distorted anyway. Okay. And then there's obvious atmospheric perspective. That's always a wonderful thing to deploy. And we want to do that by, it's a trick. It's not actual atmospheric perspective happening in the atmosphere. We're just getting like some kind of gray smoke to create a separation between this level and this level. If you want more immersion, you can just completely delete that and then try to combine or bring in all of that heat and that black soot and that dust right up to the character as he is on the surface. Right. So it's your choice which one you want to keep, but the atmospheric perspective separates those two together from each other. And then we've got light effects. So there's the focal point of those eyes, which are a little bit high on the canvas, but it's a cinematic scene, it's moving. And then you have a big chance to show some really cool fire emerging out of his mouth. I'm just choosing some hot spots too. And then the snout should typically cover the rest of the mouth in this angle. Heat wave distortion, it's called mirage. I think mirage is like the event, but yeah, heat wave distortion sounds right. If that's even the thing. I'm not sure if I want to do the snout though. We'll see. And then I'm going to just kind of try some more immersive tricks in a second. Just trying to get this mouth to feel like it's in perspective. Just showing less does more. Just felt like that area was a little bit empty. So I'm gonna smudge it. I'm just darkening till we get to the mouth, just like that. And then you look at the before and after. And I might try a different angle, a different Dutch angle. Trying to look at what I want to keep so that nothing is too over blurred. And then just so that it feels a little bit like he is crouching, I'm going to show some of the background value. Inferior mirage, change in refraction caused by an increase in volume and a decrease in density when hot and cold air vibrate together. They vibe. It's air vibes. Thank you. Alright. Then I'm just going to do a quick before and after and then see what else we might add. I like the hand, I'm just too much of a pussy to render it right now. Alright, perfume bottle. We're gonna have to try some other tricks. But other than that, I think we've done a lot. And you can take a halfway shot from this. You don't have to do this exactly. That big jump forward doesn't have to be that much. You can go halfway there. But I don't think we really miss out on what you were doing before with the silhouette. I don't think we're losing out on all of that. And since the character is the silhouette, we can really get away with a lot of contrast and brightness in the background, just to make it feel a little bit more fiery. So burn on shadows. And then more effects just has to do with smoke and particle effects, embers flying around. That's a big cinematic trick. Just atmosphere and mood are really established by any kind of particles, fog, stars, glows, anything like that that floats around establishes. Snow establishes a lot of mood, because we use climate in the air to set up this environment of either danger, elements that are bigger than us. They shrink the character, and when you're in a small, environment, if you're small in an environment, atmosphere tends to take over because it's about the scale. All right, and then there's the altogether shift, which is tilting the entire scene on its axis. All right, so that's just one big trick used across the board for any kind of illustration, for really just comic books, stories of all kinds. That's a big trick. And if you kind of try to diagram it, you can really explore a lot of options. The horizon never has to be flat. In fact, this is horrible. This is like a you get a bad mark if you do that. You always want to at least have some kind of horizon tilt, but we're talking about like those extreme angles where, you can't just have the Dutch angle here and then straight characters. You have to have the characters on the Dutch angle, or the angle, like the extreme angle itself, whatever it is. Doesn't have to be a cinematic, like cliche angle. It can be perspective that's causing it, that creates the feeling like you're losing control. So you're like hanging off a cliff. You're going to make the horizon wobble around as the cameraman, because you're filming as if you're creating the same sensation of vertigo. So we're trying to create the same sensation, like there's a tectonic shift and this Titan woke up to fight this, what looks like a Spartan now. Okay, so we're comparing what we had before to what we have now. I'm going to try to pull off the Dutch angle. This is fine as it is, and it's perfectly respectable, but I also want to explore other options. Alright, then there's foreground blur, which we haven't messed with, and that kind of stuff I've covered before. Covered foreground blur with you guys, atmospheric fade, all of that. But it's the cinematic stuff that I wanted to mess with today. It just makes things feel a lot more towering, and also significantly more unstable. And then just helping the viewfinder, just creating more like horizon lines till we get to the monster. So more rocks, more boulders in the way, just helping us find that path to look at the monster. So I'm just creating some grid lines, and this is like the line of sight that we're trying to travel on to carry us to this monster. So along this grid, which you'll eventually disable as the layer, you're starting to fill in some things, and this is how you're going to create a really, really cool depth ladder. So we have a couple rocks there, we have some light, we get some cast shadows. So you can prepare a lot of these elements beforehand, just to help you create more space and fill this area up. If you don't want to fill it up, if it's supposed to be a poster for a game, if it's supposed to be a simple shot in a multi-shot action scene in a comic book, you don't really need to go out of your way. If it's about the character, if it's about this guy, you can blur him. If it's about him, which really shouldn't be since he's so small, you've already forfeited him as the main focal point. It's a shared focal point, and he's the diva here, he's the one who's getting all the attention because he's the one facing the camera. It's his intro shot. We already know the hero and love the hero. I kind of like how the horns seem to, I know this isn't the horns, but it's kind of looking like a horn, and I think that's really cool. Kind of having that arc forward. So that's it, really. It's not much I wanted to share. It's just one big difference between the two. And that's kind of how you create this scene. And for a lot of artists, it's hard to pull these off because for a lot of reasons, the character is not perfectly inside the scene. Which is something that students hate. They hate that. They want the character to be nice and sitting pretty with the hands crossed inside the canvas. They want the next character to be also right beside them inside the canvas. It's like playing with action figures. That's how we played with action figures. They're all the same size, they're all in, we're just playing, you know, and having fun. And that's kind of how it looks like when you guys render two characters so close to each other and so similar in size in one canvas. It just looks like action figures. Okay. In order to not do that, you have to start implementing that immersive cinematic effect, which it doesn't mean you have to take a class in it. It means you just have to look out for these things in movies when you watch them, and also think like a movie maker. What would you do if you were in this scene? Imagine it, and you were being chased, and you're just terrified out of your life. You probably die of fear, but let's say you were courageous enough to try to get out of this volcano. What would the fight be like? Let's say you had courage, but you know, courage is not without the presence of fear. So you're also terrified. So what would your, you know, empathize a little bit, be a storyteller, a writer. Writers have a lot of empathy. So they can, you know, immerse themselves into a scene and feel what the character's feeling. So what would you see if you looked up and saw a big lava monster chasing you? What's that like? You know, at one point or another, and this we were talking in the Patreon Discord, we were talking about how to make these harbingers. We were doing themes for holiday themes, and we were doing like seasonal thematic character designs of harbingers, of themes for different like the harvest goddess or something like that, or fall harbingers, or harbingers of you know, across history of Patreon. We've done all kinds of characters like that, themed characters. And one of the biggest things that dehumanizes a character is, one of the critiques I did was just making, instead of having a head, just making it headless, or having the harbinger of fog just be like folded fabric as its head. That dehumanizes it. So when you're a tiny little guy running away from a big monster, you just see like the legs, you see the torso, you see the arms, you know, walking, and then you barely see the chest, and then you barely see the head. And then this guy just happened to, you know, crouch down and look at you, and so maybe you'll see something of a head, and then the horns, right? And then that's the belt, and then you see like a sword or a staff. And then you take that whole drawing and just try to fit it into an illustration, and then bring our little guy here, and he's kind of just looking up, and you see all these really, really cool opportunities to make the viewer feel what the character is feeling. Another critique I did for my student was the same effect. We just did a quick zoom up. So this was my edit, and then this was his initial drawing. So again, it's that action figure feeling. Right? Students are just obsessed with the feeling like they have to show all of the character in the environment. No, you don't. You can have the character just like he's so big we can't fit him in. Look at what one edit did to the feeling that the character, to create the feeling that he's a giant, he's a titan, he's a force. And we could have gone even further. So what I did was I took the head and pushed it behind the torso. But for me, I wanted to push it even further. And then we put the character in the foreground. It's supposed to be a magic card, mock magic cards that we're doing. Alright, so it's one quick edit that makes the character feel more immersive because we're thinking about it as the character. How would we see this large object? And that goes for everything. That goes for environments. That goes for a wanderer looking up at the mountains. If you were asking a student, a beginner, hey, draw a character looking up at the mountains, or just an adventurer on a mountainside, a professional would draw something like, you know, you'd have the mountain kind of eating up the whole scene. And the character is just, you know, just small, traveling across. All the angles are looking up. And then a beginner would just do, you know, mountain, character. Instead of just the mountain is just so much larger than the character, and the viewer is, and the character is extremely, you know, either in perspective looking up, or extremely small looking up at the mountains. And then you have some kind of nearby ruins to establish the feeling like it's Worm's Eye. Because if it's supposed to be about how large, let's say you're drawing the Misty Mountains in Lord of the Rings, if it's about how large these mountains are, they really prided themselves with those aerial shots in the Lord of the Rings, but it just was pretty. It was pretty shots. It never felt like we were involved in some of those scenes. But then in The Hobbit, they really went out of their way to make it feel like it was immersive, because the rock giants, the fight that they were having in The Hobbit, you looked up and you saw these slow moving giants. I can't play the video because I'll get copyrighted. And their motions are so slow and methodical, and it just seems like we're looking at planets colliding. You just have to think like that. All right, so immersion, scale, perspective, horizon angle, and that's it. Scale doesn't work unless you have one small object with one large object. You can't just have one object. Scale is about comparison. All right. So thank you everyone for coming today. Kind of a slow day, but it's a cool discussion nonetheless. I'll see you guys on Tuesday. Portrait Studio sale might go live tonight or tomorrow morning or tomorrow night. Definitely within 48 hours. And it'll be on sale for around 50% off if anyone's interested in having it. Actually, I might do a quick little demo about, no. I'll do it afterward. If you want to support, you can go do so on Patreon. And the current challenge for the Discord, so go to Istebrak.com to submit your work. And the current challenge for the Reddit community is the Holiday Design Challenge, which will be due before the Christmas holiday break. And if you wanted to give it a shot, go read through it. It's really cool. You get to design characters, all made of the same crystalline icy material. So we're going to be talking a lot about how to use dodge tool, subsurface scattering, and the best kind of lighting for those characters. And you can, it's creatures, sorry, not characters, creatures. It's creature design. All right, I'll let you guys go. Thank you everyone for coming today. Bye.